Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. In this video, we are going to look at externality concept. We will be discussing its meaning, its kinds, and measurement. As we all know, externality is something that we are basically seen in microeconomics, and also this is seen in environmental economics. And externality exists when the consumption and production choices of one person or one firm or some economic entity affect the production function or the consumption function of some other economic entity. And this is without the permission of the second party or the affected party, and he is not given any kind of compensation. He is not consulted for getting permission, etc. So let's understand by using an example. Just take an example of a laundry which is located next to a steel mill, and the act of steel making can cost a lot to the laundry, and also the act of laundry would cost a lot to the steel mill. In the first case, you would see that the laundry is using the water which is used by the steel mill, and the laundry is making use of the water in order to wash clothes, but the steel mill is discharging some dirt and smoke into this water. And a classic example of externality is that the owner of an apple orchard provides a positive externality for the neighboring air. Here, the positive externality to the orchard in terms of the bee pollinating the apple blossom is another example. Generation of knowledge also provides some positive externality in the sense that the benefit it provides are rarely confined to those who generate the knowledge. We can take another example. Suppose there is an individual who is consuming two commodities X and Y. His utility function is given by U X Y, where X and Y are two commodities. The individual chooses how much of X is to be consumed, but he doesn't have any control over the consumption of Y. His consumption of Y is determined by some other person. This is an externality, and this shows the production possible. And we can see that if you look at the case of production possibilities of steel and laundry, the maximum amount of the two that could be produced, or the maximum amount of steel as well as washed clothes that could be produced if the two entities, that is steel plant as well as laundry, if these work together, could be understood. Note that with no externality, both can produce some maximum amount, and the two firms are essentially independent of one another with a modest externality involved. Increased steel production would diminish laundry's output, and if the possible output combination can be convex, leading to potential pricing problems, we have to understand that as well, but that will not be explored here. The strength of externality is influenced when the location is proper. The location should be clear as well as important. We have to understand the strength of the externality, whether it is increasing or decreasing. Before that, let's understand the types of externalities. Externalities can be unidirectional or reciprocal, which means if A imposed an externality on B. For example, just take A is an economic entity, B is another economic entity, A. Due to some action taken by entity A, this imposes some externality on entity B, and B has not imposed an externality on A. That means that the externality is unidirectional. That means that it works in one direction only. But if B imposes some externality on A, the externalities become reciprocal. Further, classification of externalities is whether they are marginal or intramarginal. If they are marginal and unidirectional, then A's behavior at margin would affect B's utility or profit. If they are intramarginal, then A can be marginally adjust his behavior without any change in the external effect caused on B. So if you are looking into a marginal unidirectional externality, here an important example is disutility to pedestrians. People, the ones who are using the pathway which is meant for walking. This utility caused by an emission of exhaust fumes by motor cars. Marginal reciprocal externality include a situation when people who enjoy smoking but do not enjoy inhaling smoke that has been exhaled by other smokers who respond to other smoking by smoking themselves. An intramarginal unidirectional externality include the case of a lake, which may be unsuitable for swimming if too much of certain types of effluents are discharged into it, but it may be able to accommodate a large inflow of additional effluent, and hence the marginal adjustment in the inflow of a certain range do not alter the extent of the damage. Intra-marginal reciprocal externality could be seen when two radio listener people are in close proximity to each other. On a beach, one may be distributed if the other operates a radio. If each attempts to raise the volume of his radio to overcome the other's volume, then we can imagine the situation. It is possible that over a range of volumes, their welfare would be unchanged. In this situation, the externalities are intramarginal. The absence of the existence of the above situation or above mentioned kind of externality is the precondition to determine the efficiency of perfect competitive market. This has led to the evolution of the concept of market failure. Market failure in accounting external economies should be understood. In the context of environmental economics, the most important source of market failure is divergence between the producer's evolution of cost of activities and the valuation by society. This divergence basically arises mainly because of the presence of what we uh, could see as external effect or spillovers. This is also known as neighborhood effects and third party effects. A firm's valuation of profitability of alternative levels of output or lines of production is based on cost, uh, especially the cost of using the inputs which are required. That is, there are private costs of this activities borne by the producer or decision maker himself. But we have to assume that, or we have to understand that private costs are the not are these are not the only costs that will incur that will be incurred. There are also social costs. This would measure the opportunity cost to society as a whole of the resources used by the firm. Where the opportunity cost is evaluated is on the basis of the alternative uses that the activity would make. Whenever a producer uses a resource for which society has an alternative use, then social cost of the resource is not zero. Even if the if there is if even if the resource is received free of cost, this is its opportunity cost or alternative cost is not zero. Typically, when a factory discharges waste into a river, no charge is payable for doing this. The private cost to factory of using the river as the waste disposal system is zero. But the resulting pollution may require a downstream industrial user to purify the water he makes from the river before he can use it for industrial process. He incurs some additional cost as a consequence of the free use of the river by upstream producer. Further, the contamination of the water, you can know that it would kill the fish stocks and degrade the quality of the water, and also it would affect the environment, and it will act and it will degrade the value as a recreational amenity. In environmental matters, there are many examples of divergence between private and social costs. The atmosphere may be polluted at zero private cost, while the social costs are potentially extremely large, from extra cleaning bills through chest diseases to unknown implications of the health issues, and unknown implications, it would include health issues which would be which would be difficult to diagnose. The use of chemical fertilizer gives the farmer the private advantage of improved crop yields. The cost resulting from accumulation of chemical compounds will be borne by another, possibly far apart in distance and even generations apart in time. It is not only private producers in pursuit of commercial profit who ignore the social costs imposed by their activities. External effects thus involve malrecognition and misdistribution of cost. The adverse consequences of others of a particular activity are not conveyed and priced through an appropriate market transaction mechanism. The implication of this is that the offending activity will be expanded beyond a socially optimal level. Where the waste disposal is free to the waste producer, he will generate too much of waste and devote too few resources for treating the discharges. Okay. So, moreover, we could see that when the effect has to be rectified by people who are suffering from these effects, too many resources would be absorbed. When treatment of dispersed pollutants is more difficult and expensive than the which could be done at the point of emission. Externalities, it considered to be beneficial in some sense. For example, planting of trees may reduce soil erosion, while good architecture or effective landscaping gives pleasure at no charge to the passerby. In cases where social evaluation of benefits of an activity exceeds the private valuation, the market alone will lead to activity being underprovided. If you are looking into the case of public goods, a further idea of major relevance to environmental economics, especially where even a perfect market system would not secure socially optimal level of provision, which is known as the collective consumption goods or public goods. While private goods are supplied on an exclusive basis, I have already done a video on the difference between private goods and public goods. You can go through that video. I'll be providing the link of the same in the description box. So, you could understand that some leading examples of a public good which has got some features of non-priority and non-excludability as against in the case of private good. So these are some national defense, eradication of infectious diseases, environmental sphere, clean air, landscape amenity, freedom from pollution, etc. When these are made available to particular individuals, that are automatically available to the entire group, and use or enjoyment by one individual does not diminish the supply which is available to others. We could see that public goods can be usefully characterized by extreme degree to which they imply externality or spillovers. Even in the case of a perfect competitive market, public goods will tend to be underprovided relative to social optimum. Producers, in general, you could see that they will not be willing to supply where they cannot secure payment. And payment cannot be enforced when a consumer cannot be excluded from enjoying public good. While private charity may provide some elevation, provision will remain insufficient in total and erratic in incidence. Valuation which people place on public goods is particularly difficult to estimate. The obvious procedure of stimulating market mechanism by finding out difficulties which narrow self-interest will promote at least some people to understate their preferences in the hope of avoiding payment in the future. For example, the degree of hostility to the establishment of an airport locally or support of saving a species of wildlife cannot be gauged with any degree of accuracy from voluntary contribution to campaign funds. At least some actual or potential contributors will reduce their contributions of the knowledge that if campaign is successful, They cannot be excluded from sharing the benefits of the success. This is known as a free rider problem. It can be moderated by a more enlightened concept of self-interest or a sense of collective social responsibility, or more clearly you could see that by balancing the incentive to understatement with an equal incentive to overstatement, by underrepresenting the costs involved or implying that they will be generally borne by others. But it is obvious that in many cases an adequate solution to problem posed by the non-excludability of public goods and free rider will require some public provision with compulsory payment through taxation. For example, the degree of hostility to establishment of an airport locally or support for saving a species of wildlife cannot be gauged by using some degree of accuracy from voluntary contribution to campaign funds. At least some actual or potential contribution will reduce their contributions to knowledge that if campaign is successful, they cannot be excluded from sharing in the benefits of success irrespective of their contribution to it. This is known as free rider problem, and this can be moderated by a more enlightened concept of self-interest or sense of collective social responsibility, or more clearly by balancing the incentive to understatement with an equal incentive to overstatement, by underrepresenting the cost involved or implying that they will largely these things will be borne by the other persons in the economy. But it's obvious that in many cases an adequate solution to problem posed by non-excludability of public goods and free rider will require public provision with compulsory payment through taxation. Moving to measurement of externalities. One of the problems which you could see, especially in the developing economy, is that an optimal economic policy is that many environmental externalities cannot be measured. And several economists argue that it's possible to obtain measures here by measuring the change in land values coincident with the change in the externality, or by relating the spatial distribution of land and property values of difference over space in the incidence of externality. It may be possible to quantify the value of the externality. The standard method of doing this is to measure the partial relationship between the property values and externality in multiple regression mode analysis. This approach is based on hypothesis that a commodity or service cannot be treated unidimensional, but this should be decomposed into a separate set of utility reaction characteristics, each with its own price. Coming to the solutions of externality, first of all, solutions by prohibition. This suggests a total prohibition of action giving rise to pollution. Then solution by direct controls, which would require setting a ceiling level and quality effluent discharged into water or air. Then solution by taxes. His idea is to encourage activities which could contribute to common goods and discharge those that deviate from common good. A subsidy, on the other hand, would require payment of financial incentive for every unit pollution abated. Solution through direct action. Solution by making use of sale of pollution permit. This is the establishment of a system of marketable license. Each instance would get its over the right to pollute up the specified amount of the given place. Solution through restoration of property rights is suggested by many who strongly believe that common property nature of resources believe that restoration of private property ownership will serve as an incentive to preservation and conservation of resources. Pollution externality and economic efficiency. The term external implies that some costs that do not accrue to the firm that produces goods and services, but are imposed by society. Such costs are outside the market and not reflected here. Of many kind of externalities, we don't go for too much time. Only we have got two different types: technological or pecuniary. These are reflected in market prices and do not cause a divergence between marginal private cost and marginal social cost. Change in price caused by individual decisions which increase the demand and theory of an increase in the cost of production is termed as pecuniary externalities. The rise of price is a pecuniary externality. So we can see that pecuniary externalities benefit economy. These are reflected in the market prices. Coming to real or technological externality, the pollution of water is an example of this. And if externalities are not there in social, optimum output is reached when the price is it is something which is exactly such that a marginal price, marginal cost price and marginal private cost, marginal cost as well as the marginal private cost are equal. The optimal output when externalities exist is determined when price is price is something which is equal to marginal cost. So in this figure, you can see that the marginal social cost is equal to marginal social private cost plus marginal external cost. P is the price line, and the vertical distance between MPC and MBS shows the external cost, which is net loss to the society. 0% unit of output is produced by the firm. MPC is producing O units of commodity. OP1 increases, but MSC of these units are given by OP 2 rupees. The difference between P2 and P1 is the marginal external cost of producing O units, and the marginal external cost is the constant per capita of output and does not depend upon the level of output. The firm has to take the market price of the management of the firm does not take into account of the external cost, and as such all these things would this would maximize the profit by equating MPC with the price. In this case, you could see that all units of commodity, as at this level of output MPC equal to P, would make an equilibrium of E, but the society point of view that all costs should be taken into consideration, equilibrium should be at even. In the ideal condition, the firm should have kept P is equal to MSC. Private optimum level of production is OL unit, but social optimum level is OK units. Difference between two levels of production represents the overproduction by the firm. Society would be better off with OK than OL unit because resources used to produce KL units have greater net productive value. The same logic is applied in some other goods. Thus, we can come to a conclusion that in an ideal competitive market, the external diseconomy distorts the optimum allocation of resources. Some goods may be overproduced and some are produced in less quantities, and they may not be produced. Some may not be produced at all. So that's all. I welcome you to my Telegram group and Telegram channel to discuss your doubts, and like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thank you.